Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 17, 2023 NFL predictions. Well, I hope everybody out there had a great holiday and spent it with their family, friends, or people that care about them, and hopefully they all had a great time eating food, exchanging gifts, cutting it up, and enjoyed the football games. That's what I did with my family, and I had a great time. Though two of the football games were absolute surprises in the fact that I didn't expect the Chiefs to lose outright as 10.5 point favorites, and I didn't expect the Niners to get absolutely decisively beaten by the Baltimore Ravens. So I'm happy as a Ravens fan. That's a huge victory for us, and I think that does, objectively, in my opinion, give Ravens fans the most confidence they've had since 2000. And you could argue that this team is probably right there with the 2019 team, if not a little bit better with the experience than the last time we were in this position. But, that's a different story for a different day. But overall, though, for the week, though, against the spread and straight up, I had a respectable week. Not a great week in terms of overall production, but respectable. In that last week against the spread, I went 500, 8-8, and straight up I went 9-7. So that's 56.3% and 50% respectively, straight up and against the spread. And now overall for the year, through 240 games, I have now 115 and 119 and 6 against the spread. And straight up now, I'm 143 and 97 through 240 games. That equals 49.2% against the spread and 59.6% straight up. So, very much so, this is probably the worst year I've had in probably the 10 years I've done these predictions on this channel. It might be one of the worst overall years I've ever had with how, this has been going. And against the spread, I'm not doing that bad. I'm under 500, which is always my goal with this. So, and I still have a chance with 2 weeks to go in postseason to get above 500 for against the spread picks. So I'm very excited about that. But definitely the 59.6%, the 60% straight up, not one of my prouder moments. I do have to say that. But, look, 32 games left. The sprint to 272 is on, and we will all gladly... I will gladly be excited for this finish when it happens. So, all right. So let me go right into my picks. So tomorrow, for tomorrow's game, when the 6-9 New York Jets travel to Cleveland, take on the 10-5 Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are 7.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Cleveland here minus 7.5, and Cleveland straight up. Then the next game on Saturday, the night before New Year's Eve. When the 11-4 Detroit Lions travel to Dallas to take on the 10-5 Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are 6-point favorites in this game. Give me Dallas here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Detroit plus 6. Then the next game, when the 4-11 New England Patriots travel to Buffalo to take on the 9-6 Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are 12-point favorites in this game. Give me Buffalo here to win straight up, but I'm going to take New England plus 12. Then the next game, when the 7-8 Atlanta Falcons travel to Chicago to take on the 6-9 Chicago Bears. Chicago Bears are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Chicago here minus 3 and Chicago straight up. The next game, when the 7-8 Las Vegas Raiders travel to Indianapolis to take on the 8-7 Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Indianapolis here minus 3 and Indianapolis straight up. The next game, when the 8-7 Los Angeles Rams travel to New York to take on the 5-10 New York Giants. Los Angeles Rams are 6-point favorites in this game. Give me the Los Angeles Rams here minus 6 and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. Then the next game, when the 3-12 Arizona Cardinals travel to Philadelphia to take on the 11-4 Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are 10.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Arizona here plus 10.5, but I'm going to take Philadelphia straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-8 New Orleans Saints travel to Tampa Bay to take on the 8-7 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Tampa Bay here minus 3 and Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, when the 11-4 San Francisco 49ers travel to Washington to take on the 4-11 Washington Commanders. The San Francisco 49ers are 13.5 point favorites in this game. Give me San Francisco here minus 13.5 and San Francisco straight up. Then the next game, when the 2-13 Carolina Panthers travel to Jacksonville to take on the 8-7 Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 6.5 point favorites in this game. Give me Jacksonville here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Carolina plus 6.5. Then the next game, when the 11-4 Miami Dolphins travel to Baltimore to take on the 12-3 Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens are 3-point favorites in this game. Give me Baltimore here, -3, and Baltimore straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-10 Tennessee Titans travel to Houston to take on the 8-7 Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I'm going to take Houston here straight up, but give me the Tennessee Titans +3.5. Then the next game, when the 8-7 Pittsburgh Steelers travel to Seattle to take on the 8-7 Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are 3.5-point favorites in their game, just like the previous one. I'm going to take Pittsburgh here +3.5, but I'm going to get the Seattle Seahawks straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-10 Los Angeles Chargers travel to Denver to take on the 7-8 Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Give me Denver here to win straight up, but I'm going to take the Los Angeles Chargers +5.5. Then the next game, when the 8-7 Cincinnati Bengals travel to Kansas City to take on the 9-6 Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are 7-point favorites in this game. Give me Kansas City here to win straight up, but I'm going to take Cincinnati +7. And lastly, on New Year's Eve night, to ring in the new year, when the 7-8 Green Bay Packers travel to Minnesota to take on the 7-8 Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are 2-point favorites in this game. Give me Green Bay here in my only outright upset of the weekend. Give me Green Bay here +2 and Green Bay straight up. Alright, and one quick caveat for the Titans-Texans game where I guess the spread pick. I have just read that C.J. Stroud is expected to practice. I don't know if he's going to clear the protocol, but it's a good sign for that to happen. If he clears the concussion protocol and he gets the nod to start, I will take the spread pick and change it from Tennessee +3.5 to Houston -3.5 at the time. Or I'll change that to the current odds. So, that's my only change, and I want to throw that caveat in there. And I will take that, just so everybody knows. So, alright, it's time for my quick thoughts on each game. The Cleveland Browns over the New York Jets. Look, this is a game to where, the Cleveland Browns have been absolutely dominant. Look, Joe Flacco's led the league in passing yards per game since he became the starter back in Week 13. And he's the fourth oldest quarterback to have 3 straight games of 300-plus yards passing. And Amari Cooper had his franchise-best 265 passing yards against the Texans. He's also the first receiver with 3 games of 200-plus yards receiving and 2 touchdowns with 3 different teams. He's done it for 3 different teams, for the Cowboys, the Raiders, and the Browns, which is incredibly impressive. The Browns have the 10th best rushing defense, the number 1 passing defense. Cleveland is 6-1 this year when they have allowed under 100 yards rushing as a team, which they did against the Texans. Cleveland's also forced the 2nd most turnovers in the league. And Kevin Stefanski, with all the injuries to the offensive line, the defensive line, the wide receivers, the quarterbacks, and now the kicking and the punting units, because they had to sign Riley Patterson from a practice squad. He's going to kick there. And Corey Bojorquez, their punter, has a quad string. So Kevin Stefanski is winning games with injuries decimated through his entire offense, defense, and his special teams now. And that's why he will definitively, in my opinion, get Coach of the Year. And, Cleveland's just been that dominant on a roll. And they're playing the Jets, who, look, I want to give the Jets some credit. Look, they've scored 30 points in back-to-back home games. Scoring 30 points for the Jets under the Robert Saleh era is a downright rare thing to happen. And the Jets now, with that performance against the Commanders, for as much crap as I rightfully have given Robert Saleh, and to very quickly say, I think Woody Johnson's a moron for giving Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas a 4th year. He's basically, in my opinion, now become the Black Jeff Fisher, to where Woody Johnson just sees Robert Saleh as this brilliant cone head of a defensive mind, and it's like, oh, we want to give him a chance with Aaron Rodgers. But if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt again, because, Zach Wilson's out for concussion, and hopefully he gets better, but it's like, we can't let Robert Saleh's body of work as a coach just because he didn't have a quarterback. It's mind-baffling to me that they are giving this man and the GM a 4th year, but that's a whole different conversation. But they held Sam Howell to 6-22, 56 yards, and 2 picks before he got benched. And Jason Brownlee, a 2023 undrafted rookie, did catch his first touchdown, so congratulations to him. And they held the Commanders to 91 total yards up until Sam Howell got benched. And Greg Zuerlein's made 25 straight field goals. So, I want to give the Jets their credit for that, but objectively, you were playing Sam Howell, and you let Jacoby Brissett go on a miracle run to where, up until that punt and Rivera playing prevent defense, you were about to choke a 20-point lead, or a double-digit lead that late in the game. The first time you had possibly done it since 94, 95. So, look, I think the Browns, they have better talent, they have better receiving talent, and I just think that Jets offense cannot do anything against this Browns defense. The Texans weren't able to do anything. The Titans weren't able to do anything. The Cardinals weren't able to do anything. The Bengals weren't able to do anything back in week 1. This Browns defense, more often than not, has been able to stifle enough opponents with their play. And Flacco's been competent enough that I think he'll outplay Trevor Siemian in this game, and Flacco getting the motivation of playing his former team while he was sitting on the couch that he was willing to come back. I think the Browns easily get this victory and break the 14-14 tie of the Monday Night Football debut matchup, Browns-Jets, in this game. So that's all like Cleveland there, minus 7.5, and Cleveland straight up. And last thing before I get to the Lions-Cowboys game, Robert Saleh's inept, and if it wasn't for the Green Bay Godfather, Saleh should have been whacked along with Douglas, and it's a shame and a downright disgrace that he's getting a 4th year. But there's quick thoughts on that. No other coach, if Rodgers wasn't there, he would have got fired. Let's just all be honest. So, all right, the next game, the Dallas Cowboys over the Detroit Lions. Let me give a round of applause to an actual good coach in Dan Campbell, who has led the Lions to their first NFC North title in franchise history. And yes, the first NFC North title, because the last time the Detroit Lions won that division, it was called the NFC Central back in 1992. So they've gone 31 years without winning a division title. That was the longest active streak, I think, in the NFL and NFL history. So congratulations to them. And shout out to Half Moon's Picks. Hopefully, buddy, for you, you're enjoying this moment. You get a home playoff game. You might get to play your former quarterback in Stafford. You might get to play Geno in a weird game, depending on what happens. But enjoy the moment. And also I'm going to shout out Amon-Ra St. Brown. He becomes the second Lions receiver with multiple 100-plus reception seasons, joining the second greatest Lions receiver of all time, Herman Moore, as the only 2 receivers in that category. The Lions also won that game massively because they had a season-high 4 defensive turnovers from Nick Mullins' 4 horrible interceptions that basically kept the Lions in the game and the offense being able to move. And the Lions could make some history here. If you look at the statistics, they become the first team in NFL history with 2 1,000-yard rushers and 1 1,000-yard receiver on the same team. Amon-Ra St. Brown already has 1,000 yards, and you have Jahmyr Gibbs, Dave Montgomery, who are very good runners who have a chance through the next 2 games if they have to play or not, depending on what happens with that game, and depending on what happens, they might get to bench everybody against the Vikings, so that may not matter. I don't think, in those statistical categories, I think the 2 of them really don't matter, and rest is more important. But, so that was an interesting stat line I found out as I was doing preparation for this game. And the Lions, though, here's the one thing, though, I will tell every Lion fan, that enjoy this moment, enjoy the season, because it's a tremendous success regardless of what happens. But the Lions are showing you that they are a turf football team. Because they are 8-2 at home or in indoor stadiums with retractable roofs this year. In the 5 games that they had to play on pure grass, they are 3-2 in those games, and it's not great. So once the Lions, if they get out of the first round, they go to the second round, they play the Rams. If they get out of that second round, or if they have to play the Eagles or the Niners in that second round, it's probably not going to be a great moment for them in those road environments on actual turf that will be effective. So, and look, the reason why I'm going with the Cowboys, because the Cowboys have been a dreadful road team this year. They're now 3-5 on the road, and Dak has thrown for 246 or fewer passing yards in every single one of those road games. 2 of them you could argue it didn't matter because they were playing the Giants and Panthers, and he didn't really need to throw the ball. And it was the first time all season that the Cowboys in back-to-back games did not force a turnover. And the crazy thing is, you can look at the game and say that the first drive of the game, they had a huge fumble at the 1-yard line that basically cost them the game at the end. Because at the end of the day, the Dolphins had 1 touchdown drive, and then they kicked 5 field goals. So the Cowboys defense, for the most part, did its job. Unfortunately, when they needed to stop after they won that 17-play drive that ended with the Brandon Cooks touchdown, they couldn't get it, and it was too easy that it drained out the clock and gave them the loss. So, and CeeDee Lamb, I do want to shout him out. He does lead the league in receptions, which is incredibly impressive. So, and the only reason why I'm going to the Cowboys at home is that I just think this Cowboys team at home just feels different. They feed off that crowd. The defense gets to, frustrations and turnovers. Jared Goff, even though he's played 2 nice, clean games, he's had over the last 4 to 5 weeks a turnover problem in more games than not. And Dak this year has completed 74% of his passes. throwing for 2,125 yards, 20 TDs, 2 interceptions. Been absolutely flawless at home. They're riding a 14 or 15 game home win streak, the longest since the 79 to 81 seasons. And I think the Cowboys, handle their business and keep their slim NFC East division hopes alive. Again, could the Lions win? Sure. Because the Lions over the last 2 weeks and the Cowboys over the last 2 weeks, the Lions have been the better team. The Lions blew out the Broncos and they got a nice, comfortable win against the Vikings. But you could argue that, if Nick Mullins doesn't turn the ball over 4 times, they might lose that one. Because that Lions defense has shown that it can be had. So, But I'm going to take Dallas here. Confidence at home. Bit of a better roster. And just I can't trust Goff on the road in that environment. Could the Lions win? Sure. It would be a huge confidence builder for them. Because then basically it's going to be, I think the Eagles and Lions are going to have to play their starters for the number 2 seed. Which is a massive, advantage. But that's why, I'm going to take the Cowboys here. Confident at home. Bit of a better defensive line. And I just think Jared Goff, in that Cowboy environment, he had a tough game last year where they got, it was a close game. But I think the Cowboys pulled this out at the end, knowing what's at stake for possibly the number 2 seed. So that's why I like Detroit here, +6, but Dallas straight up. The next game, the Buffalo Bills over the New England Patriots. I want to shout out Bill Belichick here. Bill Belichick now is 500 all-time against the Broncos on the road now. Or I think he's now above 500 with that win. Now, which means now the only team that Bill Belichick does not have a winning record with for his career on the road with is the Miami Dolphins. Which is incredibly impressive that for his Patriots tenure, because Denver has been a bugaboo for the Broncos, or in the regular season, I know there's a couple postseason loss in there. But Bill Belichick now 500 in Denver because the Patriots offense, they had a season high in points in the third quarter. They scored 2 touchdowns within 7 seconds, 20 points. And the 2 GOATs of the game, or the 2 MVPs of the game, had to be Christian Barmore, who the former Alabama defensive tackle drafted in the 2nd round, had a career high 3 sacks in the game. Though, unfortunately, I think he was gifted, because it was Christmas Eve, he was gifted a present by Russell Wilson as he spun around and basically spun himself into a sack, like wrapping paper. And Chad Ryland, who has been a dreadful kicker this year. If Nick Folk was in all those games, the Patriots could maybe possibly have been in a different spot in the wild card scenario, and also if they would have benched Mac Jones earlier. That's a totally different point. But Chad Ryland, who had missed an extra point and a 47-yard field goal earlier in the game, drilled a 56-yard field goal perfectly down the middle, which might have, just like with the Steelers, knocked the Broncos right out of the playoffs. And it's kind of impressive as well because Ezekiel Elliott's at a career low in rushing yards, and this Pats offense, outside of Gesicki and maybe Pop Douglas, they have not really had an effective weapon. And I know Ramondre Stevenson's had an ankle sprain, hasn't really been able to play. I don't know if he'll play the final 2 weeks. I don't know if he should or has to. They're out of playoff contention, but I did want to shout out the Patriots for grinding out another tough win. And at least Bailey Zappi himself is at least keeping his roster spot open for next year to at least be the backup to whoever they draft or if they bring in another quarterback. So, but the Bills, look, they have been on a roll with all the injuries to their defense to Daquan Jones, Jordan Phillips, Matt Milano, Tre'Davious White, Micah Hyde, Von Miller. A lot of the key defensive players for the Bills have had injuries throughout the year. They are still a top 10 defense in points and yards, even with the injuries that have occurred throughout the entire year. So that's an incredible testament to Sean McDermott. Josh Allen continues a streak of passing and rushing touchdowns, 11 games, with a passing and rushing touchdown, a single season record. And I want to shout out James Cook for becoming the first Bills running back in 5 seasons to have 1,000 yards rushing, which I think has really helped the Bills balance out their attack. Joe Brady, with that offensive line, he has been able to effectively make Allen more manageable, make more consistent decisions, make more timely risks that have paid off. Though I do want to say, Stephon Diggs, 5 of the last 6 games, has been held under 50 yards receiving. And I think for how Stephon Diggs' attitude is, that is going to be a problem for Allen and the Bills moving forward, because I think if or when they make the playoffs, they had this issue of where, to me, I look at the Bills and go, can they make it far? Yes. But also with Josh Allen, you never know. Because objectively, after that dominant win against the Cowboys, when you play Easton Stick, you shouldn't need a game-winning field goal for Tyler Bass within a minute for you to win that game. And honestly, they showed a play. If Joshua Kelly literally makes one cut, he could have maybe ran down the sideline to get possibly in the end zone to win the game. So, but, look, I think this Pats defense has done well against Josh Allen throughout his career. And I think with Josh Allen's tendencies, he's going to make some wild plays with his legs. He's going to throw a few bombs, but he might throw a pick or two. They lost to Mac Jones earlier in the year in New England. That was with Ken Dorsey. This is a different Bills team. It's a different mindset. I'll take the Bills to wins if they're at home. But with just how Josh Allen plays against that Pats defense enough, I think that they will hang in within the 12 points to cover the spread. And I think with this Bills victory, it's going to set up a massive game, which is probably going to be the Sunday Night Flex game. Bills at Dolphins for the AFC East division title. I think it's going to, I think with everything going on, it's basically going to show you that it's going to be the Browns, the Dolphins, the Bills, and then the winner of Colts Texans is probably going to get, if both things happen, the Colts or Texans are probably going to get that 7th seed regardless. So that's why I like Buffalo here straight up in New England plus 12. The next game, the Chicago Bears over the Atlanta Falcons. Look, I'm going to shout out the Falcons here. They did a fantastic job against that Colts offense. Kyle Pitts in 2 of the last 3 games scored a touchdown. And after the Colts scored on their opening drive, 4 of the next 5 offensive drives for the Falcons defense, against the Falcons defense, the Colts amassed 15 or fewer net yards in 4 of the next 5 drives that they scored that opening touchdown. Young Hoku was the MVP of the game, 5 for 5 on big field goals, which helped kind of ice the game. Bijan Robinson had a very nice, huge run. And Jesse Bates, who has incredibly paid off for the Falcons. He has a career-high 6 interceptions this season. And the Falcons, just weirdly enough, whenever they're in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, they tend to just play overall better. I don't know what it is. And Atlanta's now 5-3 at home and 2-5 on the road. It's this weird vibe in Atlanta that if you put Heineke or whoever in there, they usually just play fundamentally more sharper, consistent, more game managey, and just seem to have more of a consistent vibe with their home crowd. Also, I have to shout out the Falcons defense because the Falcons defense actually played pretty well with not getting a lot of pass rush. There was no individual Falcons player that has more than 6 sacks the entire year. So, it's very much a collective effort of getting turnovers and stops and not sacks. But when I found that out, I was like, that was an interesting nugget for the Falcons that was going to be effective. And for the Bears, look, they are now 6-9. They scored 27 or more points. If they score 27 or more this year, they are 4-1. They are 2-8 when they score 26 or fewer points. And also the Bears, the big reason why they won was that the Bears had a season high in rushing yards, 250 yards. And Montez Sweat did not get a sack for the first time out 4 games. He actually leads the team in sacks with 6 this season. He's only played 7 games, which is incredibly impressive. And the Bears, this is one of those arguments to where the Falcons are going to be on the road. And when you look at this, I look at it saying that, to me, when you look at this type of game, I think the Bears defense has been playing too well over the last several weeks since Eberflus took over. I can't trust the Falcons on the road. And objectively, if you're telling me right now who is the better quarterback between Taylor Heineke and Justin Fields, it's Justin Fields. And when you have matchups of, defenses are playing well, the offensive weapons, even though I think DJ Moore's better than anything the Falcons have, but Bijan Robinson's better than any running back the Bears have. When you're in this type of game, I'm going to take the home team and the better quarterback in Fields. And the Bears, compared to the Falcons, who, like I just said, the last road game they had, they scored a grand total of 7 points against the Panthers. And lost a 9-7 games to the Panthers, where the Falcons defense didn't even give them a touchdown. So, again, could the Falcons win this game? Sure. Because I think they have some talent. Maybe they get Fields into some turnover issues. because he did throw an interception late in the game, which cut the game to about an 8-point game. But Bears defense is playing too well. I think Fields is a better passer than Heineke is. He can make some electric runs than Heineke can. And I think the Bears get their back-to-back victories for him, which is pretty massive. And I do want to say this. The Matt Eberflus conversation has to be had. Because I will tell you, for an 0-4 start to possibly end up an 8-5 finish and have an 8-9 team with the extra game, I'm kind of at the point of where I'm kind of 51-49. You keep Matt Eberflus for a third year. Because that might be a hot take for some people, but I just don't think it's right if he finishes 8-9 while playing the Packers to fire him in his second year. That if he was 500, if they took that extra game out and he took a loss out, or a win, either way, he's 8-8. And to me, if you're in your second year, that's what you want through 2 years, to say that you're a 500 football team. So, I just want to throw that out there. He'll probably get fired, but in all honesty, I feel bad for him because I don't think he deserves to get fired after that. So, all right, the next game, but that's why I like the Chicago Bears here, -3 and Chicago Bears straight up. The next game, the Indianapolis Colts over Las Vegas Raiders. Boy, did that Raiders defense do a fantastic job. They scored 2 touchdowns in 7 seconds with the fumble by the Chiefs running back in Mahomes and the pick 6 to Jack Jones, who has scored back-to-back weeks of a pick 6, which is incredibly impressive. And it was their second road win in the past 12 games in Kansas City. And it was the first time that Patrick Mahomes had lost a divisional game in November and December during his career, home or away, which is incredibly, phenomenal to show you how far the Chiefs have fallen this year. And Aiden O'Connell became the first quarterback since 2000 to not complete a forward pass after the first quarter and win the game. He only threw for 72 yards. But the big reason why they were able to do that is it was because of their run game. Zamir Zeus White and Josh Jacobs and Jacobs and White. Here's a fun fact that the only 2 individual running backs to go over 100 yards against this phenomenal Chiefs defense are Josh Jacobs and Zamir White. Every other running back on every other team this year has not been able to get 100 yards. Zamir White was able to get $145, and Josh Jacobs was able to get 110. And I feel that, to me, that's a massive kind of fun fact for the Raiders that they can brag about, is that we were the only team with 2 individuals that were able to get over 100 yards on the ground, and basically that big run at the end of near the 2-minute warning on third down basically sealed the game for the Raiders to win, and that's how the Raiders were able to split the series with the Chiefs. So, and for Antonio Pierce, look, this is a big moment for him. I will say this, I was against bringing him on, but after a win like that, where you look at his last 2 games, he got a lot of flack for losing a 3-0 game with his offense. Then he got some credit, but I kind of took that as the Chargers quitting. When you beat Andy Reid and the Chiefs, when you have that kind of stat line and you're able to win that game with your defense and that type of running game, and the Raiders are still alive in the playoffs even with all that, if he wins one of his last 2 games, which is possible, you are definitely in, I would definitely be more open to the idea of Antonio Pierce getting the job. If he loses both games, he ended up 4-6. I think you have to let him go. But if he wins one of those 2, and he gets a winning record or a 500 record, if he's able to win both, you keep him. If he loses one, you think about it. And if he loses both, you fire him. So, that's it. And for the Colts, I think the Colts, look, they haven't lost back-to-back games since week 7 and 8. The Michael Pittman injury is significant. Hopefully he'll get better. And also, I just think here's the other key factor. The Colts are now 0-7 this year when they get 29 or more points. They're 8-0 when they score 20 or fewer. I think the Colts offense might have some issues. They definitely miss Zach Moss, who was out. But to me, I look at this game and go, I think the Colts they have a better offensive line, so they'll handle the pass rush better, and I just think Gardner Minshew will play better against that weak Raiders defense, and I think Aiden O'Connell is going to have to be able to throw the ball forward moving forward. I know they, Raider fans could say, man, if we get Josh Jacobs back, we have Zamir White, we can run the ball through the Colts defense, which is true. But I just think at home, I don't think it's going to happen. I think some of those Colts players who were there remember what, they were going to have some flashbacks to a couple of years ago. Most of those players are on that team, most of them. So they know the feeling of, what happened the last time when they had a chance to make the playoffs and they choked the game to the Raiders at the end. So, but I'm going to take the Colts here at home. Bit of a better offensive line that it doesn't have to deal with, and I just think that Gardner Minshew will play better, and I think this Colts defense will give up 20 or fewer points, which should allow them to get the victory. So that's like Indianapolis here, -3, Indianapolis straight up. The next game, one of the easier games of the week, the Los Angeles Rams and the New York Giants. Look, Puka Nacua has 96 receptions this year, which is the third most by a rookie in NFL history. He has 1,127 yards receiving. He has the fifth most receiving yards as a rookie. He's had 3 150-plus yard receiving games, joining Bill Groman, Billy Houston, Jamar Chase, and Randy Moss. And he's had 6 games of 100 yards receiving in his rookie year. Only Odell Beckham and Justin Jefferson have more. But the Rams, in this 4-game win streak, have been able to rely heavily on their running game. They have 5 straight games of rushing over 120 yards as a team. And Kyren Williams, Christian McCaffrey and Kyren Williams are your 2 leading rushers in the league right now, which is incredibly impressive because Kyren Williams is this third-round rookie that nobody really had thought of. And the Rams, had other running backs, but they have found their bell cow back. But to be fair, look, the Rams played pretty much dominant football through the first 3 quarters, but after the third quarter, they've had 20-7 or 27-7 leads, and they've given up 2 scores in both those instances that made the game a lot closer than it had to be, and it ended up being 1-score game. So you could argue, if the Rams don't have a smooth 3 quarters, they could be in a completely different situation, and that's maybe not the best way to put it, even though Matthew Stafford did throw for another 2 touchdowns. He's had, I think he's the oldest quarterback with 4 or 5 straight 2+ touchdown games in Rams franchise history. And their rookies, Kobe Turner, their nose tackle, and Byron Young, their other defensive end, have been incredibly impressive this year. They have 12.5 sacks combined as rookie players. So the Rams definitely did well with the drafting of their late-round picks, which have become absolute stars and fantastic. And the reason why I'm going with the Rams is they're playing the Giants, who only gained 103 yards through the first half. And I just heard that Brian Daboll has made the decision to bench Tommy Cutlets. So Tommy Cutlets had his, let's just say, Sopranos ending, where Brian Daboll was the last person to walk through that at the diner, and Tommy DeVito's lights just went black, and it's all over. We don't know. And so now they're going back to Tyrod Taylor, the most injury and unlucky-prone quarterback in the history of the NFL, or one of in the history of the NFL. And I think it's a mistake. Because to me, you basically have said, we are giving this job back to Daniel Jones. And unless you bring in a veteran backup or draft a quarterback, there is no way the Giants fans are going to accept that Daniel Jones is the unquestioned starter. Because you could argue, you can't bring Tyrod back. You could, but you would need to bring in a veteran or draft a quarterback and have a genuine competition. Because Tommy DeVito now is either going to end up third string or cut. Tommy Cutlet's going to get cut. Cut or whacked, or whatever time way you want to put it. But because, and I feel bad for DeVito. Because DeVito, I thought, showed some promise. He starts 7 more touchdowns than Daniel Jones has through fewer games. And Tyrod Taylor, besides Darius Slayton catching the longest touchdown of the year, that 69-yard reception, he didn't really do that much better than DeVito did. He didn't. The Giants scored 14 of their points off turnovers. Dallas Goedert fell, and Adoree Jackson got his first career touchdown, and then they fumbled on the special teams play at the kickoff, which was like a 10-yard play, and they gave Saquon the ball 3 times, and he ran it in. So, Tyrod, yes, he did have that 1 touchdown, but if you take that 1 explosive play away, he didn't really do anything else. He played just as well as DeVito did, and now Brian Daboll was like, oh, hey, look, he made a deep throw, and he got the win. So, we're going to go with him. But it's like, now you basically have said to the Giants fans, Daniel Jones is our quarterback. Nobody's really going to give him any challenge. And I think that's a problem because Giant fans are going to go, wow, we need to draft a quarterback or Brian Daboll is getting fired at the end of next year because he stupidly decided to go back to Daniel Jones. So, but look, the Giants have bottom 5 defensive points and yards. The Rams' offense has been humming. And I objectively just feel like this game is just going to be an easy game for the Rams to roll through this weekend. So that's like the Los Angeles Rams here -6 and the Los Angeles Rams straight up. The next game, Philadelphia Eagles over the Arizona Cardinals. Look, I'm going to shout out Matt Prater. Matt Prater is the most accurate and has now made the most 50-plus yard field goals in NFL history at age 39. He is definitely maybe one of the more underappreciated kickers in NFL history throughout his entire career, through Denver and now Arizona. The Cardinals, though, they've now given up 10 straight games over 100-plus rushing yards to the opposing team. They have a season-high 250 rushing yards to the Bears. Amari Dermercado is not a bad backup running back. James Conner had a nice touchdown, but I didn't think he was that bad. And objectively, though, like 3 of the past 4 games, the Cardinals have not committed an offensive turnover, which is nice, but they haven't been able to win a lot of those games. And it's just one of those things where, look, the Giants were able to be competitive with the lack of talent they have, and Kyler's a better quarterback than Taylor is or DeVito is right now, and I'm going to trust that to cover the score. But for the Eagles, this is a Jonathan Gannon revenge game. That city hates that man, and Gannon hasn't really done a lot of good favors to, he's got a few wins, which allowed him to keep his job and going into next year, but it's saying that, okay, we're going into year 5 of this with Kyler Murray, or 19, 20, 21, 22. Year 6 of Kyler Murray, with Jonathan Gannon coming back for a second year. I don't know if that combo is going to work, and honestly, I think Kyler and Gannon after next year could both be out of jobs or be moving out of Arizona, which objectively might not be the worst thing in the world if you look at their history. But Jalen now has a single season record due to the tush push, the brotherly shove of 15 rushing touchdowns. It's not nearly as impressive as Cam's because at least Cam was able to, dive or at least run forward outside of a shove. But hey, it's an impressive mark for Jalen. He's definitely probably one of the fantasy MVPs because even though he has a bunch of turnovers and leads the league in turnovers, all the rushing touchdowns and cheap shoves and his passing touchdowns really help you get a definitive, consistent scoring margin. But the Eagles do need to run the ball better because DeAndre Swift is the 5th leading rusher in the league at 988 yards. And when you watch Eagles games, it's weird because it's like, I don't really know how to describe how the Eagles offense is. Well, I can tell you, it's too reliant on 2 people. 67% of the Eagles receiving yards that Jalen Hurts has thrown this year belong to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. 33%, and if you take out Dallas Goedert's number, it's like about 15 to 20% or even lower than that belong to the rest of the receiving corps. And that involves Zacchaeus, that involves Quez Watkins, that involves an old Julio Jones. And it's just like you are literally watching a guy play 2-man pickup, a 3v3 basketball game. And it's great because, you have the talent in the offensive line. But you just need to run the ball more and give other guys opportunities because it's not really going to help. And with how the Eagles management and how the Eagles players have looked over the last several weeks, I have to tell you, if they play the Rams, if it ends up the Rams have to go to Philadelphia, I think Philadelphia wins, but I would not be surprised at all if the Rams went into Philadelphia and won that game. Because they have a bottom 5 passing defense. And Hassan Reddick, basically on one of the key drives that the Giants just basically decided to spam the dive button like in Madden. Hassan Reddick had the big defensive stop, but basically ended the Giants' momentum at that point. And I think the other problem for the Eagles is the 4 longest drives the Eagles have had, they ended up in field goals or no points. So they wasted a lot of time to get nothing or kick field goals. So, and look, Philly's won 5 of the last 8 at home against the Cardinals. Look, Philadelphia should get some confidence. They played a good overall game. They played well enough. Their defense still has some problems, and there's definitely professional tension within that organization between Sirianni and the players. They are not happy with how they've been playing right now, and they can feel it. And they know that basically right now, they are the second best team by record, but it's not but it's saying that we could lose the first round and people aren't going to be that surprised. But again, Philadelphia, I'm going to trust Kyler Murray. He's better than Taylor, and they've a little bit better talent. And with the Eagles having playing with a couple turnovers, they'll probably cough up the ball once, maybe twice to the Cardinals to keep them in the game. I think Philadelphia wins with their run game, how bad the Cardinals' running defense has been. And I think the Eagles grind out a win, but I'll trust Arizona with their talent, Kyler Murray, that he can make 1 or 2 plays that keeps him within the 10.5. If the Giants can do it with the talent they had entering the game, I think the Cardinals can do the same thing. So that's like Philadelphia here straight up at Arizona plus 10.5. The next game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers over New Orleans Saints. This one is to where, look, the Saints in games where they've given up 24 more points, they're 1-6 this year. And Pete Werner and Demario Davis are the only Saints that have 80-plus combined tackles for the entire year. Rashid Shaheed's have been impressive with 16-plus yards of reception. And the Saints are just an awkward team to where, like, they don't really play that well. But they're not a Bears or a Patriots or no, not the Bears anymore. They're not Panthers. They're not a Patriots. They're not a Cardinals. They're not the lowest of the low. But they're not even better than the Bears, you could argue. They're not even better than the Vikings, who they lost to. They're not better than the Falcons, who they lost to. They're not even, they can't even be considered, they're a bad, mediocre team. They're not a dumpster fire or rebuild or top 5 Cancun, 1, 2, 3 Cancun type team. But they're just a bad, mediocre football team. And Rashid Shaheed, it wasn't bad. He has 16 yards per reception. But it's objectively where you're just watching the Saints every week. And it's it's odd. Could they win one of their last 2 games? Sure. And I think Dennis Allen going into his second year, if he does finish 8-9, you definitely have that interesting conversation to where you're like, what do we do? Because, if he wins one of his final 2 against the Bucs or, the Falcons, you could say, look, he got possibly an 8-8 record, but it's Dennis Allen in his 4th year coaching. He's been absolutely pathetic as a coach. But, yeah, I just, it's 8-9. I probably would fire him, but you can make the point that the Saints GM is more of a problem than the Saints coach because he has put them in the Ponzi scheme situation of where they can't even generate any movement because they're $80 million over the cap start going into next year. So, and look for the Bucs. Mike Evans has had and another touchdown. He is now only the 5th player in the first year to have 12 touchdowns in 5 or more seasons, joining Jerry Rice, T.O., Marvin Harrison, and Randy Moss. And the Bucs defense was sensational. They had a season-high 4 defensive turnovers. And Baker Mayfield, in the last 4 games, has played very well. He has 6, 8, 9 touchdowns to 1 interception. He has over, 2, 3, 5, about 1,000 yards, 9 TDs, 1 interception. Definitely the comeback player of the year, in my opinion. And the Bucs defense did a fantastic job. They held the Jaguars to an overall total of 33 total rushing yards. And Rashad White has 9 scrimmage touchdowns for the team. That's only behind Mike Evans, which was 12. And I think Baker is playing slightly better than Tom Brady was last year. I think he's playing slightly better. The numbers will tell you that. And I definitely think that this time around, if the Bucs have to put the Cowboys in the playoffs, they could beat the Cowboys this time, unlike last year. So I think it should be an interesting game. The Saints-Bucs games always have kind of weird. They've always been kind of close, and I think Derek Carr is a bit healthier than he was last time. He's coming off the AC shoulder sprain last time, but I think he's a bit healthier now. But I'm going to take the Bucs here. They're at home. They're playing a bit better. They have more momentum, and I just can't trust the Saints in this spot, as awkward as it is, because I just really don't believe that they're going to be able to pull this game out. So that's what I like Tampa Bay here, -3, Tampa Bay straight up. The next game, the San Francisco 49ers over the Washington Commanders. This is one to where, look, I have been a huge Brock Purdy fan. Okay? And look, the Commanders have the worst defense in the league. They just benched Sam Howell, which means that they're done. Sam Howell's not the starting quarterback next year. He's not. He just got benched for Jacoby Brissett. And honestly, if Ron Rivera was smarter, if Ron Rivera had a bit of an offensive mind, he probably could have maybe saved his job if Jacoby Brissett was the quarterback. It's just the truth after what you had seen. And Eric Bieniemy might have also kept his job too, but that's a whole different conversation. Look, that's the thing. Look, the Niners are going to kick the tar out of the Commanders. They have the worst defense in the league. Jacoby is the better quarterback, but they're playing a Niners defense that's ticked off. They played its worst overall game. The only quick thing I want to say about the Niners is that I've been a huge Brock Purdy fan. And, look, he is now one of 6 quarterbacks that have no touchdowns, 4 interceptions, fewer than 20 completion over the last 5 years, joining Zach Wilson, Davis Mills, Sam Howell, Jake Luton, and Sam Darnold, who was his backup, by the way, who actually ended up throwing a touchdown, unlike Purdy did. And McCaffrey was the best offensive player on the team. And also, again, Brock Purdy is completing 63% of his passes, 1,037 yards, 5 TDs, 7 interceptions with an 82.4 quarterback rating when he is trailing in football games. So, to me, I think Brock Purdy, he's not going to win the MVP. That's probably going to go to Lamar Jackson now. But I think the Niners respond greatly. They don't take these butt kickings lightly. And after their bye week, when they played the Jags, and I don't know bye week this time, they just absolutely dumped the Jags. I'm kind of expecting the same type of thing this week against the Commanders. The Commanders have no good defense. Chris Rodriguez scored his first 2 touchdowns, which was nice. Playing the worst defense in the league, and Jacoby Brissett, what a way for Ron Rivera to basically get the tar kicked out of him by playing the Niners defensive line. And Chase Young and Trent Williams get to have some revenge games, and it's just going to be a long day for the Washington Commanders. So that's why I San Francisco here minus 13.5. San Francisco straight up. Though, one last quick thing on the 49ers. Let's just throw a little shade at Kyle Shanahan. Not like I enjoy doing that, but I do. Kyle Shanahan deserves some blame for this too, because the man can't come up with a second ball. He can't go. He's not a good improviser. He's now 0-38 in his career when he trails by 7+ points in the fourth quarter. Like, as everybody gives him talent, and this is just a Purdy thing. This is with Garoppolo, with Lance, with Mullins, with Beathard, with everybody. He can't rally his troops to say when his plan doesn't work that, hey, let's do something different, So that's just a problem. So that's like San Francisco minus 13.5. San Francisco straight up. The next game. The Jacksonville Jaguars over the Carolina Panthers. Look, Bryce Young, bravo to him. Season-high passing yards. Played the best game of his career. 312, 2 TDs. The Panthers defense gave a season-high of rushing yards, though, which got the problem. And Eddie Pinheiro missed 2 huge PAT attempts. I think it would have ended up being a 1-point game. But the idea of that consistency is kind of the issue for the game. And the Panthers, only second time this year, got 2 defensive turnovers or more in the game. So that shows you that the Panthers, even in their best moments, they somehow just seem to can't give up, find a way to win. And they're playing a Jag team, which instead of being ferocious Jaguars, look like little fresh baby cute kitties. That's how pathetic and weakly they played over the last 4 games. They committed 10 offensive turnovers on this 4-game losing streak. They have the second fewest yards per attempt rushing in the league. And the only positive thing that's happened is Evan Ingram in back-to-back seasons has broken the franchise record for receptions for a tight end. And actually, for a single season, he has the 3rd most receptions for a tight end in Jaguars franchise history. Only Jimmy Smith, the Jags' probably greatest receiver of all time, or Keenan McCardell, if you make that debate, has more receptions in a single season. And Trevor Lawrence, who suffered a shoulder sprain, who has over the last 4 weeks suffered an ankle sprain, a concussion, and now an AC shoulder sprain, joint sprain, is probably not going to play, and he shouldn't play, because objectively, it's basically you are taping up a wounded man and forcing him out there. But I think C.J. Beathard, with the talent they have, should be able to beat a Panther team that, again, they've gained some momentum, they haven't looked bad, and they could have got their 3rd win, and they've shown some promise. At the end of the day, I'll trust Peterson with how they have with Beathard, with ETN, with how bad the Panthers have seemed to have been. I think the Jags defense will get a little bit of steam back that they win this game. But I'm going to take Carolina here plus 6.5 based on the fact that it's probably going to be C.J. Beathard starting. And I think Beathard and Young, that's probably about a push. I think Young could outplay Beathard in some ways. If the Jags lose to the Panthers, Now you have an interesting conversation of they might have just lost the AFC South and they might not make the playoffs, which basically means that the Texans might be able to get in the back door anyway, even if they lose the game. So, but that's why I like Jacksonville straight up, but Carolina plus 6.5. Next game, the Baltimore Ravens over the Miami Dolphins. When you look at the Dolphins, first time since 2000, 2001 that they had Dolphins made the postseason back-to-back games. There was a huge fumble at the end of the first drive, which was big. And the Dolphins won the game by basically holding the Cowboys to 15 net yards in the second quarter. Basically, the rest of the game, Dorrance Armstrong and Micah Parsons had the game-changing sack, which allowed Dak to go on that 17-play drive. And Raheem Mostert, 21 total touchdowns. He is the most single-season touchdowns overall. Only Priest Holmes had more in 22 and 24 and 02 and 04. And no other Dolphin receiver had more than 57 total receiving yards outside of Tyreek Hill at 99. Jalen Waddle has an ankle sprain, so he probably won't go, which is huge. Lamar is 20-1 all-time now against the NFC, which is one of the best records in NFL history, playing against the other conference. It was the most impressive win and dominant performance by the Ravens all year, and it's probably the most impressive win by any team all year, just knowing the competition and confidence. It's the second time in franchise history the Ravens forced 5 interceptions. The other time was against St. Louis back in 2007, where we forced 5 picks there. So the NFC West has had a horrible time playing the Ravens secondary in those moments. But the Ravens, from those 5 turnovers, lead the league in turnovers. But the reason why I'm going with the Ravens is that our defense is playing much better. But I think the Ravens, most of those players remember last year where we had a 35-14 lead entering the fourth quarter, and we blew a 21-point lead with that Dolphins offense. And even with Waddle not being there, objectively it's saying if we double or triple team Tyreek Hill, make Tua throw the football, and make Cedric Wilson, Braxton Berrios, Durham Smythe beat us. That's it. And objectively, could, the Dolphins defense with what they have, Jalen Ramsey made a huge difference. But that pass rush going against our defensive line, they have some great pass rushers. But that Dolphins offensive line is banged up all to you-know-what. And objectively, I think the Ravens don't get trapped into a letdown after the biggest win of their year. And I think they win the game based on the Dolphins' injuries and Tua only having one weapon. And I think that's going to be the difference. And the motivation of last year. They remember what happened last year, most of those players, in that 21-point collapse. So they're going to be motivated to show the Dolphins that last year was a fluke and we are clearly the best team. Because if we win, we go not only clinch the AFC North, but we get the number 1 overall seed as well. So that's why I like Baltimore -3 and Baltimore straight up. The next game, the Houston Texans over the Tennessee Titans. This is one to where, look, Derrick Henry, he has 3 touchdown passes, which is quite impressive. Harold Landry, 9.5 sacks. The Titans' rushing defense was incredibly impressive. They held the Seahawks to 58 total rushing yards, but Ryan Tannehill had a tough sack at the end of the game. And they've had 7 one-score losses for the Titans, which is basically the encapsulation of their season. They could have been a playoff team. They could have been fighting for the division. But they just weren't able to capitalize. I don't know if Keenum or Mills gets the start. I don't think it'll matter. I think Keenum can do enough. He just did enough against the Titans just 2 weeks ago. If he gets it, Dameon Pierce got his first kickoff return for a touchdown, which is impressive. And Desmond King had 11 tackles. And Derek Stingley, I'm going to shout him as well. 4 of the past 6 games, he's gained 5 interceptions in 4 of the past 6 games. So he's showing definitely his value and definitely becoming the number 1 corner that the Texans had desperately wanted. So, but I like Houston here, even without Stroud. Like I said, I think Keenum will bounce back. I think they can play well enough. And I just don't trust the Titans in the spot they are with their defense that they're not going to be able to find a way to lose this game. So that's why I like Tennessee here plus 3.5 and Houston straight up. I have a few minutes to go here, so let me quickly go through the rest of the games. The Seattle Seahawks over the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is the one to where, look, Seattle's the 3rd team since 1970 with 4 game-winning touchdowns in the final 2 minutes of regulation, joining the 2012 Seahawks with Russ and the 2004 Jaguars. And the Seahawks are the 2nd team in NFL history to have 2 different quarterbacks throw game-winning touchdown passes in the final minute in back-to-back games, joining the 99 Dolphins. The Steelers were great. They won a turnover battle against Cincinnati this year, 4-1. TJ Watt leading the league in sacks, and I think he should be the defensive player of the year again. If they don't make the playoffs, though, it should go to Myles Garrett. George Pickens had a career high in 195 yards receiving, and they're now 5-1 all year when they do not commit an offensive turnover. Mike Wagner has 154 total tackles, and the reason why I'm going with the Seattle Seahawks this weekend is they're 7-1 all time at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers in franchise history. And just in this moment with Mason Rudolph starting, Mason Rudolph had some momentum, but him going into that Seattle environment with what's going on and with Pickett playing, I just think Tomlin going with the hot hand, it's not going to work out. And I think they pretty much are going to knock themselves out of the playoff race with this incident. They could have Seattle played Pittsburgh last year or a couple years ago, and that could have been different. But who knows? But I am going to take Seattle here, home field advantage, bit of a better vibe, and I just don't trust Pittsburgh's offense to generate that type of offense once again. So that's why I like Seattle here plus 3.5. But I'm sorry, Seattle here straight up, and Pittsburgh plus 3.5. The next game, the Denver Broncos over Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers have missed the playoffs now for the fourth time in 5 years. Easton Stick wasn't great. They still choke like the Chargers do. Russell Wilson's playing like Baker Mayfield this year, but stupidly the Bronco fans want him out of town for some odd reason. I don't get it. Denver's also given up 20 points. They had 20 points in the third quarter, which is probably one of the season high for them. And Broncos, Sean Payton once again showing his bad situational awareness. And it's just like last time and the reason why they lost was between the second and third quarters, they had 5 drives where they gained 57 total net yards. That was on Russ and the offense's fault. But in that moment, when you have those moments, you got to make some decisions early on that in the grand scheme of things make you play differently and have a different kind of perspective of how to manage the game. But just like the Chargers, like I did last time a couple weeks ago, I'm going to trust the Broncos' talent and their coaching over the Chargers, along with the Keenan Allen injury. And I just, again, the choker still proved they're still a choker. So I'm going to take the Chargers though plus 5.5 because honestly, with how they played against the Bills, I think they could play just as well with Easton Stick with coaching decisions to keep within a 6-point game. So, but that's why I like Denver here straight up, but the Los Angeles Chargers plus 5.5. The last 2 games, the Kansas City Chiefs over Cincinnati Bengals. This is one to where, look, the Chiefs had negative 18 total yards of offense in the first quarter, lowest in the Mahomes era. Isaiah Pacheco had a concussion and knocked him out of the game. And their offense has not done a lot, but they've had 7 games scoring under 20 points this year. In Patrick Mahomes' in 5 of his first 6 seasons, he only had 6 of those games through 2018 to last year. The defense has been lights out. They're the number 2 defense in points and yards, in total yards. They've been outstanding rushing. We talked about Aiden O'Connell earlier not being able to throw. And it's just an idea to me where I think the Chiefs, they can move the ball, hopefully, against the Bengals defense. The Bengals defense has not been very good. They lost Jamar Chase, who might not be able to play this week, which is huge. The Bengals offense could not generate anything. Travis Kelce now has 4 full-time tight end receptions. And in their last 3 road games, the Bengals have given up 31-plus points on the road. So, though the Bengals have won 7 of the last 8 games against the Chiefs, I just think with no Jamar Chase, but the injury to DJ Reader, even though Cam Taylor-Britt is opened up for practice, I don't think it's going to matter because they are not going to make it. I think the Chiefs win this game. I'm going to take the Bengals plus 7 because if the Raiders could cover 10, I think with Jake Browning, who has been playing outside of the Steelers games, he's been playing pretty well, and I think they can keep it close. But give me the Chiefs here with their defense, and I think Mahomes will be able to put some up enough points against this Bengals defense to win. So that's why I like Cincinnati here plus 7, but Kansas City straight up. And lastly, the Packers over the Vikings. This is where, look, the Green Bay Packers, they have the better quarterback. Love has 10 games with multiple passing touchdowns, most in the league. The Packers are bottom 2 running defense, and they've 4th second fewest interceptions. But they're playing Nick Mullins, who just drew 4 against the Lions. And Rashawn Gary is leading the team with 20 QB hits. The Vikings have the highest percentage of drives ending in a turnover. And Dobbs and Mullins combined have gone 9 TDs and 11 interceptions. And one of their second best pass rusher for the year is out for the year of a partially torn quad. And the Vikings offense, I've not been able to trust them over the last few weeks. So I'm going to take the Packers. Better offensive consistency. Loves them playing better. And I think the Packers should be able to get enough defensive stops against Mullins for them to win. So that's all I like Green Bay here plus 2 and Green Bay straight up. But those are my picks for this week. Like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube Prognosticators page. And until next Tuesday, everybody, Happy New Year, everybody. Hope everyone has a great rest of the 2023 and even better 2024. And until 2024, this is Matthew Novak signing off. Until next time, everyone, so long.